Hey everybody, I'm Curtis.
And I'm Hannah.
And this is Love at First Fright. Happy 1 year anniversary.
Oh, that was scary. Yes, specifically happy 1 year anniversary to the podcast.
But, maybe you're also celebrating a 1 year anniversary.
Anyone out there, if you've been dating for 1 year, congrats. You're as old as our podcast.
1 year ago you went to Olive Garden for the first time. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Happy Olive Garden Day. Happy first day of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We put out our first episode of Love at First Fright on November 23rd, 2023.
Yeah.
So this week will be the 1 year anniversary. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Sorry I scared you with the...
Sorry I screamed fully into the mic, and that's probably gonna be loud.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be fantastic.
I am very jumpy.
No, it's exciting. It's what does this make? Episode 27?
I think this is
one?
episode 27.
So yeah, we're a year into it.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, it's a fun milestone. We've done some cool things this year. We did a live show. We made stickers.
You were gonna stop it. We did a live show.
That was really the only thing of note. We did a live show and a half dozen people came.
Yeah. No, we did a live show and our like download count is like steadily going up, so it's cool. Yeah,
thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun.
It has been. We've been gone for like a little bit. Not that I think anybody listening to the show would really notice because we release every 2 weeks.
Yeah, we happen to go away during the downtime.
Yeah, so that was kind of intentional.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we took a little vacation.
Yes, we went to Savannah, Georgia, and we had a blast. We stayed in a haunted inn.
Yeah, a haunted inn. Not the we didn't stay in like a haunted room.
In the haunted room.
But, depending on which tour you book there, they'll tell you that everywhere in Savannah is haunted, so.
Yeah. Yeah, we went on one walking ghost tour, and the tour guide made sure to reinforce at every possible turn, everywhere you step in Savannah, you're on dead people. I'm just like, okay, man.
My favorite thing about that tour was there's like cemetery that he took us by, and it was one of these gimmicky like late night tours.
Yes, he had like a lantern.
Yeah, which was really funny because he showed up and the lantern was supposed to be lit, and it was an electronic lantern, but it was dead.
It wasn't working.
And he pointed that out, and he was like, "So it's more just here." And I was like, "All right, well, you could have just left it."
Yeah, like why did you bring the lantern? We wouldn't have known any different.
There's a cemetery that you walk past, and he was telling us about it, and there's these bricks on the sidewalk, and some of them have these like patterns in it, and there's like it's like these two little circles and then some line patterns on them, and he was telling us that the symbol on there, the pattern, was to signify that there were graves beneath under the sidewalk. But then throughout the rest of the tour he was like, no matter where you are in Savannah, there's dead people underneath you.
So it's like, why don't we have those bricks?
Yeah, so I was like, then? So they only did it right here?
I mean, I understand because this was at Colonial Park Cemetery, which is in like downtown, and at one point like they started like taking space from the cemetery to build up like roads and stuff. So I guess that's why, but they did that everywhere. It seems like they did that
because every square we went to, he was like, and this was also a mass grave. And like, I'm like, but they didn't get the fancy bricks here.
No, they didn't like them. They just wanted that one.
Are the bodies here real or not? That's what I want to know.
Colonial Park had the famous people, I guess. So
I didn't know them.
They got. Yeah, it was a very ghost heavy trip. We did go on the walking tour. We also got to do a paranormal investigation.
Yeah. I wanted to specifically shout them out. They go by Ghost Coast Paranormal, and when we booked the trip, we were doing like trying to plan out our itinerary, and we were between a couple of different venues to do paranormal investigations for. And I found this one, and we booked it, and we showed up at like 10:30 at night, and then it was this we met one of the guys who was leading it. His name's Micah. And then his partner Courtney was doing the kind of the historic tour part of it. Micah kind of gave us the rundown on all the equipment, but they did an actual lock-in. And this was in the historic Savannah Theater, which is burned down 3 times or whatever and been rebuilt. But yeah, we did this whole multi-hour lock-in in the dead of night. I don't think we left there until 2:30 in the morning.
We just basically got to wander around in the dark with night vision cameras and EMF detectors and live out our ghost adventures fantasies.
It was really, really fun.
It was so fun.
I have I haven't looked at it yet, but I have an hour of footage on my phone because I had a gimbal that I was using as well. But it was really fun.
It was so fun. It makes me sad that I'm a little too young to have gotten in early on the ghost hunting business.
Yeah.
Because now I would just be another one, We
could right now be working on a crossover episode with Zach Bagans.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Let's sow those seeds right now. Zach Bagans, we are available.
I'll come on there.
I would love to meet you.
I'll also be on the show.
We want answers.
We want answers. There are things in this world we will never understand. We love that show. It's so good.
It rules. So yeah, that was a blast. Really, all the ghost stuff and the haunted history was a blast. Yeah. We got to go to the Grave Face Museum, and then their sister sick. Museum, which is the Terror Vision Museum.
Yeah.
And it's all true crime, horror movie, cult stuff, all the weird morbid history, which is right up my alley. So that was also super fun, and we got some fun old school Halloween VHSs and stuff. So it'll be nice stuff to have.
H2O VHS, and then was it Halloween 4?
I think so. I think those were the 2 they had.
That we bought on VHS, and then I bought a couple of cassette tapes for Friday the 13th. Yeah.
We're getting very into collecting
dead media stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool. There's something about the artwork in the Terror Vision Museum that we went to. They had an exhibit in there. Well, they had 2 exhibits that I really want to talk about. This one is related to what we were just talking about. But they had a 1990s-esque video rental store exhibit, and it wasn't super big. It was basically just one room, but all of the walls were lined with VHSs in the sleeves.
Yes.
And there's something about the art that they did on these. I don't know if you remember what was the movie called? It was Jack Frost.
Yes.
The one with the scary skeleton, or not skeleton, but the snowman.
Yeah.
But they did the lenticular.
Yes, they have the holographic.
Yeah. And they don't do that on DVDs anymore. At best you get the kind of shiny covers or whatever.
Yeah, they were real creative with home media back then, and it just gives me nostalgia as someone who grew up in the 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was super fun. The other exhibit we really liked in there was it was a partnership with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Museum, which I think is in Texas or something.
Yeah, it was the 50th anniversary of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So they had kind of a traveling, temporary exhibit thing, and it was so cool. They had
it was wicked.
Lots of original props and costumes and all these setups. They had a whole version of the dining room table with grandpa, a full version of grandpa sitting there in the chair.
Yep.
I'm gonna share some pictures on the on the Love at First Fright.
I got to dress up as Leatherface a little bit.
Yeah.
I had on the apron and the tie and everything.
Yep.
It was really, really fun. There was this animatronic thing that they set up when you walk into the room where Leatherface knocks out the one guy and then he slams the metal door closed.
Yep.
They had that set up and it was legitimately, like, it got me. And I don't normally jump at stuff, but that got me because we were not expecting it. There was like a little fridge. And then it like pops open with this animatronic guy like trying to get out of it, and then the door slams closed. And,
it was so cool.
Good.
It was like a really haunted house, and we just loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, if you are going to or want to go to Savannah, I highly recommend, especially if you're into weird.
Yeah.
And
you gotta be into the weird stuff like us.
I think particularly the Grave Face Museum is a little bit more like challenging,
because that one's more like true crime.
True crime. There's an Ed Gein exhibit and a John Wayne Gacy exhibit in there, and they have a lot of artifacts and stuff, and I think particularly the Ed Gein exhibit is the one that would
there's like crime scene photos and stuff.
Well, and when you first walk in, they did like a recreation of like
one of the more famous crimes.
One of the more famous crimes. There's a body that they've like strung up and it's dripping. It's gross.
It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
But if you like weird, morbid history, it's definitely worth it.
They did do a really good job of separating like the myth from like the actual stuff about it. Like a lot of people know about the nipple belt that they told us about when they were there. And that was like a college kid in like 2010.
They did a lot of myth busting. I also appreciated that even though they had a lot of artifacts from these, criminals, that they weren't necessarily being like celebrated. Like in the John Wayne Gacy exhibit, there was a huge wall that was dedicated to have like pictures and bios of all the known and identified victims. And so there was very much an emphasis on, the history, the consequences of it. And yes, there are those things to kind of pique your morbid curiosity, but it was very respectful.
And also they had a sick pinball setup.
Yes, they did.
There was a room filled with like a bunch of pinball machines, and we played pinball for like 30 minutes.
It was so fun. I could have played pinball all
There was a Halloween one, and I loved it.
There was an Elvira one.
Yeah, there was, and I think I kind of broke the Nightmare on Elm Street one. Maybe.
It's
I don't
fine.
know.
It'll be fine.
It might have been old.
But yeah, it was super fun. And then, of course, one of the major highlights of the trip is, drum roll, we got engaged.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't see it, but I'm pointing at the engagement ring.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was very exciting. We've been together for over 5 years now.
Yeah.
And excited that we took this next step in our relationship. We wanted to share that with y'all.
It was really fun.
Yeah.
We did it in between the Grave Face Museum and the Horror Museum.
Because we're little freaks.
We're just little freaky goblins.
Little freaky dudes. But yes, very good trip. And I'm excited to share some of the photos and things with you all after this.
Yeah, so we'll post stuff on the First Fright Pod Instagram.
Yeah,
so you guys can see some of the cool things that we got up to down there.
Yeah.
But
you ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's talk about this movie we watched.
Speaking of freaky little guys.
That's a good one.
Thank you. The movie that we watched this week is called Freaky.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like a weird spin on that Lindsay Lohan movie Mean Girls.
Go to your room.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, not Mean Girls. The Parent Trap.
Shut up. It's a play on Freaky Friday.
Oh, no, I don't see it. I don't see how it's connected.
Oh, man. Yeah, so this was a 2020 kind of horror comedy. It was directed by Christopher Landon, and he co-wrote the screenplay with Michael Kennedy. You might know Christopher Landon from Happy Death Day.
I never saw that. I wanted to, but I never saw it.
Put it on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was kind of a continuation of that theme, because Happy Death Day is sort of like a comedy horror version of Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And then this one is, you know, comedy horror version of Freaky Friday. So it seems like that's kind of his thing that he enjoys, is like making a horror twist on film classics.
Right.
We have a pretty good cast. We have Catherine Newton as the main character, Millie. She was recently in Lisa Frankenstein, so she's kind of, you know, making a name for herself in the horror genre.
Yeah.
Most importantly, we have Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
As the Blissfield Butcher. And then we do have some supporting cast. We have Celeste O'Connor as Nyla, Misha Osherovich as Josh, Uriah Shelton as Booker, and we also have Millie's family. We have her mom, who's played by Katie Finneran, and then her sister, who's also like the local cop, who is played by Dana Drury. I also just wanted to shout out to, it's kind of a minor character, but there's like a mean woodshop teacher named Mr. Bernardi, and he's played by Alan Ruck, who of course, you know, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, very famous. So that was a fun little feature as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like Freaky Friday, it's the story of people switching bodies, but in this version, it is a victim and a serial killer who switch bodies.
It was really funny because I put this on. You had no idea what like the twist or
I
real
had
plot
literally
of this
never
movie.
even heard of it.
Yeah, and I knew what like the premise was, but I didn't know how anything worked out. And I gotta say, Vince Vaughn was a real standout in this after the body swap happens. Yeah. I mean, I think he did fine as like the killer as well, but also when he's the killer, or when the killer's spirit is in Vince Vaughn's body, I should say, he's more of the like silent, just like unstoppable thing, which was also cool to see. The opening of this movie was fantastic.
Yeah.
But then when they have the body swap, when he swaps with Millie, and Millie's soul or whatever is inside Vince Vaughn's body, Vince Vaughn is acting like a teenage girl.
Yeah.
This is very good.
Very fun. Very fun. Yeah. And then on the flip side, you have, you know, cute teenage Catherine Newton, who is now playing this like strong, silent, badass, sort of like almost like sort of an alien quality to her, which I think was just supposed to represent like the psychopathic nature of the Butcher. But she's just very like doesn't know how to communicate with people, and like, you know, is looking at everything like he's never seen it before, which is fun to see her do as well. So definitely more of a comedy than anything scary. I think that's what they're going for. Though there is some, you know, actually pretty sick gore in there.
Yeah, there's some
good
gnarly
practical effects.
Some gnarly gore stuff. I mean, like, was it the first kill in the movie? It was with the wine bottle.
Yeah.
That was pretty gruesome. Mostly we didn't know how this was going to start out, and it's just like an immediate, like, the Butcher showing up and killing people. They
do kind of a fun thing where it's like 4 teens who originally, because again, I didn't know anything about the movie, so I was like, oh, these are our main characters. And they're, you know, drinking and talking about homecoming, and they're telling town urban legends, and one of them is about the Blissfield Butcher who, you know, kills high school students during the week of homecoming.
Yeah.
And then they all kind of separate out and they're going in different areas. So you have the one couple like hooking up in the other room, and the other couple that hasn't gotten quite there yet, sort of having a little argument and separated. But yeah, straight up, like within 5 minutes, the Blissfield Butcher comes in and just absolutely decimates all of these people.
Yeah, he does some really cool stuff, like the final girl of this opening thing, who ultimately does get got. She's like running away from him, and I think to illustrate just like how like scary this is as a character, like she like closes this like glass door and he just barrels through it. He doesn't even slow down. He just keeps walking, and I was like, whoa. But It's very much like, especially this opening sequence, it's very reminiscent of, like, the character himself is very reminiscent of, like, Jason Voorhees.
Yes.
He's got a mask on. He's wearing kind of raggedy, like, black clothing.
Yes.
And he's kind of this hulking figure. I mean, these are teens, and he's a full-grown, like, 6-something adult, and he's a big guy coming after them. And then when he does get the final girl, he, like, shoves her onto a wall and impales her on something. And when he does this, he tilts his head to the side, which is very
a Michael
Myers
reference.
reference. So it's very much this, like, look at all of these horror things going on. Which was
super fun for me because, you know, sometimes Curtis puts on some stinkers. I just gotta say. You like weird movies.
Name one.
Any of the shark movies you've made me watch.
Wrong.
So I was
Deep
like,
Blue Sea 1 through 4 is...
So I truly didn't know what to expect, and then I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cute. Like, I'm gonna like
it. It
this.
is a pleasantly surprising movie if you've never seen it. It's not crazy scary. It is pretty gory.
Yeah. I think the reason I hadn't heard of it is that this did come out in 2020, which of course was like COVID lockdowns. Mm-hmm. It did have a theatrical release. But of course, you know,
it would have been
people really weren't going to the theaters that much. So after a couple weeks, it came to streaming. So I think it was just kind of just an unfortunate timing for the movie because it is a pretty entertaining film. And I don't know that a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies like I knew about it. I knew about it when it was coming out and I wanted to see it when it came out. And then it just like life happened. You know, we all were there in 2020.
We all remember.
Yeah. And so it just became so backseat that eventually it just kind of like faded.
Right.
So I don't know how like successful the movie was, you know, financially or whatever, but it was pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
I know looking at Wikipedia, it did make a profit. It just wasn't anything crazy. Their budget was like $6 million and they made like $18 million.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Also, $6 million. I mean, that's like a nothing budget for movies these days. Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yep.
But I do really like that though, because this is another example of what we've talked about it. I think more recently of having like bigger name actors doing horror movies. And I really
Everybody
like
knows
that.
Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn is just like a household name now. And yeah, he's like, I think he's kind of in that era where he's just gonna like do whatever he wants because he's you know, he's fine. Yeah. He's Vince Vaughn, he can do whatever he wants.
He's established and
so like why not do these, you know, small budget kind of weird, you know, takes on movies. I mean, really the only thing I don't like about this movie is that Blumhouse had
anything to do with it.
Yeah, had his little fingers in there.
Yeah.
But he somehow didn't ruin it. So.
Yes. And I will say as a critique from me, like the movie, while it is funny, it's definitely like, it's fairly predictable. It's, you know, like a lot of the humor isn't anything like super intelligent or innovative.
It's relatively
juvenile. We're making a lot of jokes about how like, oh, this is a girl in a man's body, so, I'm just realizing it hurts when you get kicked in the balls and stuff. Like, a lot of that kind of thing that's not, again, it's nothing revolutionary or groundbreaking, but it's just entertaining. You know, everything was very fast. It always had action going on. And, you know, it was pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the characters get boiled down to kind of like very simple versions, like archetypes of them. There's a bully character, this other girl that's in the school.
Yeah.
And you clock right away that character's definitely gonna get killed.
Yes. Really, the only people who die in this movie are like the assholes. Like it kind of does that classic thing of like, we set up the mean bully, the mean woodshop teacher, like the jocks who were kind of douchebags, and like those are the only people who die.
Yeah, and almost without exception, I mean maybe even without exception, in this movie, like right before any of them gets killed, the movie like reinforces these guys suck.
They suck
so you can
hard.
feel really good about the fact that they're getting killed.
Yes.
The one bully that
her name is Ryler, which is hilarious.
Oh my god, yeah, Ryler. It's such a fucked up bad name. Sorry if your name's Ryler.
So I actually, really sorry.
So sorry. Hey, sorry. Yeah, she's the really popular girl in school.
She's the popular mean girl. She's always, taking photos for her social media.
Just like the Lindsay Lohan movie Mean Girl.
Yes.
But no, when she gets killed, like just before that happens, this is after the body swap has happened, and when it does, Millie gets saved, but they don't realize that this body swap thing has happened. And so she's gone back to school, and the mean girl Ryler is trying to do that thing where even though she's been mean this entire time, she's like, oh my gosh, you're like, I'm so glad you're okay.
Right.
And do you want to like tell me what happened? So this way she can immediately go spread it, and then she can insert herself in this whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so this leads to this kind of like miscommunication thing, because Ryler thinks Millie is still just Millie, but also kind of being a little weird. And so there's this moment when they're in the locker room, and Millie like brushes Ryler's hair, and she's like, at first she seems like, oh, I would be kind of into this, but then she like turns away, and then she's like, oh, never mind, you're gross. And then she goes to the bathroom.
Yeah. Making fun of her for like being a lesbian.
Yeah. When we get to see her phone, and she's like, I told you she was a total lesbian. Or whatever. And then she like immediately gets killed.
Yes. Yeah. But, and she gets killed in a cryotherapy chamber, which they just have.
Which is in a high school. And it's like, I know
room.
like maybe the wealthy high schools got this for the athletes and everything. That seems crazy to me that they just have that.
Yeah, it also is crazy to me that even if we can accept that you have that, the fact that it doesn't have any kind of safety functions.
It goes to like -300 in a matter of like a few seconds.
She's freaking like freeze dried immediately.
When it gets opened and we get to see her like full death here, she has her phone out like as though she was getting ready to call someone, and she has froze in the middle of trying to raise the phone to her ear. So the process of her freezing would have had to have gone so fast.
Less than 10 seconds.
And it's like, I don't think they make those machines that way.
And then, of course, when she gets touched, she falls out and shatters into a bunch of pieces.
Yeah.
So that was really funny to me that was one of the ways that they decided to kill people. But so Ryler gets got, and so this is kind of what's happening is Millie realizes that she's in the butcher's body, and she's trying to get help, so she wants to like connect with her friends, but again, she looks like the butcher, so there's kind of this ongoing struggle of like trying to be like sneaky in public because this is a wanted criminal who is wanted for attacking Millie, and for killing the other kids. And then on the other hand, we have the real butcher in Millie's body who has realized, oh, this is basically a golden opportunity for me to kill indiscriminately without really even being suspected, because I have this like shield of innocence. Yeah. So I can just lure people in and do whatever I want. So, this person that looks like Millie is now going around and killing people, whereas the real Millie in the butcher's body is trying to stop this from happening and figure out how to switch them back with the help of her two besties.
Two unlikely heroes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and then this, like I kind of called out earlier, that Vince Vaughn is like an exceptional highlight in this because he's acting like a teenage girl the whole time. And I think he does it to a cartoonish degree because like Millie in her own body was not walking around the way Vince Vaughn chooses to walk around.
He's doing this like when he runs, he's got his arms like
just limp-wristed kind of. Frolicking every time, screaming at every little thing. It's very, very funny. And again, we know it's kind of ridiculous, and the whole joke is like, oh, a big man is acting like feminine. So like, again, it's nothing revolutionary. But it's just, it's a turn your brain off and have fun kind of movie. Yeah, exactly. The movie is only like an hour and a half long, so it's got a nice tight runtime in there. We had a nice little bucket of popcorn while we watched it.
So good.
Didn't feel like at any point that I wanted to like pause it to get up and go like do anything else. It moved along at a decent pace. And like we've said, the humor in it's pretty juvenile. Like that when the butcher wakes up in Millie's body and realizes I'm in the body of a girl, they did that. I knew it was gonna happen.
I knew it too.
He's looking in the mirror at himself, and then he grabs boobs
and is like, whoa,
I got these now. And it's like,
yes, very juvenile, but it's just a fun teen movie. But yeah, we have the two best friends of Millie, who are Josh, I believe, and Nyla.
Yeah.
And so they partner up with Vince Vaughn, Millie, to help. And that's also kind of a funny dynamic because they're acting as old friends when it's two teenagers and then Vince Vaughn, middle-aged Vince Vaughn. But Vince Vaughn, Millie is able to convince them that
there's that scene where she's trying to reconnect with her friends to convince I'm not actually the butcher.
Right.
Leads to this thing where they're like running through the kitchen or the cafeteria kitchen in the school, and they have like they're pulling out like pans and trays and stuff,
throwing things,
and just like hitting them, and then eventually convinces them by like saying a line or
he kind of does a couple of things. He says a couple of things that like only Millie would know.
Yeah, that's right.
But then also Millie is the plays the school mascot for the football team, and it's something that they kind of tease her for, but she's doing it because she wants extracurriculars to go to college.
Yeah.
And so Vince Vaughn does like the cheer that the mascot does. And then they're like, it's really her.
Yeah, they were like, who's your favorite crush, or who's your biggest crush, or whatever, and then they do that. That's one small gripe I have about it, is that they do the same thing again later to confirm that it's Millie. And I understand that there's how else would you get around it kind of a thing, but it's like it's the same thing twice, and it seems a little...
Yeah, later on, the crush, Booker, who... Catherine Newton Butcher is that's the only way I can think to do this, is trying to lure in and kill, but Vince Vaughn and the best friends save him, and then they kind of go through the same thing where Booker is like, that's the butcher, we have to get away from me or whatever, and then Vince Vaughn, Millie, like reads this anonymous love poem that she had written and slipped in his locker. And of course he recognizes it right away and is like, oh, it's you. Yeah. And they actually have kind of this funny thing that they do where Vince Vaughn, Millie, and Booker are like discovering for the first time that they both like each other, that it's like that they have mutual feelings. But of course Millie is in Vince Vaughn's body. So there's a whole point where they're having this like deep heart to heart in the backseat of a car, and they're like going in for a kiss and all this stuff, but then they're like, let's wait until I'm back in my normal body. But that was kind of funny too, to have this like Vince Vaughn having to like flirt with this teenage boy.
A lot of the funniest scenes in this movie to me are Vince Vaughn pretending to be a teenage girl. In any of these contexts. And it's very good.
Yes.
Again, like the plot's not like super dense. It's pretty easy to wrap your head around. I don't think it's like explicitly clear as to like how the butcher knows about this ritual, why they're doing the ritual,
why they would pick
Millie. Like none of that really gets explained or expounded on. There's at the beginning of the movie when the teens are talking about like the legends, I think they're talking about, I don't know if they talk about the knife explicitly or anything, but they talk about the legend of the butcher, and he shows up every so often and does all this stuff, and then of course he shows up and kills them. But he also seems there explicitly to get the knife, which is in like a display case inside the mansion.
It's like some antique that one of the girls' dads has collected.
And it seems wild that he knows it's there, but then we also get like these like weird voices sometimes that are like calling out to the butcher.
When they do, like, because they have like a research montage later on, and I think they kind of hand wave this by saying like, the knife, I think it's supposed to be kind of like the One Ring.
Where it's like calling out
and it like wants to be used, so it's like influencing him to come get it, basically, is sort of the hand wavy thing that they gave us.
I get you.
But he goes in there to kill the teens, basically to steal the knife. And the function of this knife is that the person that you stab with it, you switch.
Yeah, you get the same wound and then you switch bodies, basically. And then you have 24 hours and then the switch becomes permanent. So that's really the crux of it. The events of this movie start on Wednesday, the 11th. And then we have... Is that right? No.
Thursday the 12th and
Thursday
Friday
the 12th
the 13th.
And Friday the 13th, yeah. Mm-hmm. And so by the end of Friday the 13th, they have to have solved this.
Right. So, that's kind of, there's a time crunch here because, Vince Vaughn, Millie, and the friends are trying to find Catherine Newton Butcher and, do the stabs so that they can switch places. But, of course, there's all sorts of obstacles in their way. The knife has been taken into evidence at the police station. Yep. So they have to go do a whole thing to get that. And they've got to find the butcher and contain the butcher and do all this stuff. So a lot of shenanigans occur, but it's pretty fun. And of course the big culmination is when they finally have the knife in hand and it's down to the minutes. Mm-hmm. They're right there at the last possible second, having to chase Catherine Newton Butcher down and hold her down and do this whole thing and, struggle for who's going to win out.
Yeah, and then we do a callback moment because I think they failed, but then there's the...
Yeah, they hear the timer go off on the watch because they had set a midnight timer or whatever. So then they're like, oh no, we're too late. But then we have a flashback moment to Booker earlier in the movie saying that he always sets his watch 5 minutes fast so that he's never late or whatever. So, we actually have 5 more minutes.
Wait, we didn't hear the bell toll for the thing. And I'm like, the party that you guys are having, because the town has been put on curfew because the butcher's out there killing again.
Right.
The town has been put on curfew for the teens. The big prom night thing has been canceled. Homecoming thing has been canceled. And so all of the teens are having an explicit party at
the old mill.
The old mill, which is somehow close enough to where the town bell would be to be able to hear when it chimes midnight, but far enough away that nobody would come looking at the mill for a bunch of teens having a party. Setting aside the idea that every teen in town would be able to get out of their parents' house to go to this party that's going to last probably all night.
Yep. Nobody seems to care about the curfew.
It's the longest chain of you say you're going to stay at my house.
Yes,
I'm going to stay.
It goes all the way through the 2,500 kids that go to the school. It is really it's definitely one of those movies where if you start to think at all, you
cannot think about it.
Yes, because that's the same thing that I still was I was left with so many burning questions of okay, I can accept that there's a knife that calls out to be used, and I can accept that when you use the knife, you switch places with the person who got stabbed.
Yes,
and I can accept that it becomes permanent after 24 hours. Yeah. What I can't accept is why Vince Vaughn chose this absolutely random 16-year-old girl. What was the function of this gonna be?
I don't know? Maybe he was just stalking the football game because she gets left after the football game ends, and her mom... minorly, she is an alcoholic. Her father has died, and she's not gotten over it, and so she was supposed to come pick her up, but she didn't because she was passed out drunk. And so Millie gets left at the end of the football game waiting for her mom to pick her up. Her phone's dying, so her sister's on the way to come pick her up. And then that's when the butcher shows up and goes after her.
And of course, she's still in her mascot outfit. So as she's running, she's in the huge cartoonish beaver outfit and everything,
which is very funny. But so maybe he was just stalking the football game looking just for any teen, because the idea is if the soul gets transferred into a young body, then you can just live out until you're however old Vince Vaughn was in this movie again. And then you do the process over and over again, and you essentially never die.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can get that. It just seems like he goes into this body and then immediately starts just rampantly killing anything that he can get his hands on. And I'm like, eventually, like, the whole, like, oh, I have this shield of being a teenage girl is gonna wear off. Because guess what? Teenage girls also commit crime. So, like, you're gonna just get arrested as Millie, and then you're gonna be in jail longer.
But then you could just stab someone else. Unless you have to do it on the 13th. I don't think you do. I think it's just 24 hours.
I don't remember if that's
I don't think that's one of the rules.
But yeah, that part doesn't really hold up to scrutiny, but it's fine. We're just having a good time.
Yeah. They do this other thing that happens twice in the movie, but it's funny both times it happens because it's like a yelling at the screen kind of a moment where right at the beginning where the final girl of that opening scene is just before she gets got. She's running through this mansion. She runs into this room that appears to be a dead end, and she goes into a closet, and she closes the door. And then the butcher walks in, and he's looking around. He doesn't know where she's gone. Mm-hmm. And then eventually he goes over to the closet and opens it, but she's not in there.
Right.
And I didn't say this out loud, but I was like, I bet there was like a secret passage. This is like a giant mansion. Of course, there's going to be weird secret passages and stuff. And so he leaves. He goes out of the room, and then... the camera goes in, and then we see her remove the panel for the secret room, and she comes out of there. And I was just like, just wait.
Just literally just wait.
Because what he's going to do is he's going to look around that room and be like, there's no way for her to have left this room.
Right.
Because he didn't know about the secret passage, right? So he's like, she's somewhere in here that I can't find immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to act like I'm leaving and then wait for her to reveal herself, and then I'll get her. Which is exactly what happened.
And this is what happens in every horror movie. And it is like the biggest... annoyance to me.
We talked about it in what was it, the Strangers chapter 1 when she buries herself in the leaves,
and then she immediately gets up and gets got, and I'm like, bitch, they already looked in that area.
They weren't gonna come back.
Why would they come back? So anyway,
but yeah, so they do it. They do that in this, but then later when he's about to get Millie, she's under the bleachers and he's like lost her again. And then I can't remember like how she goes to like leave from underneath the bleachers, but he's done the same thing where he's like, I can't find her, so he goes to leave, and then like she's like halfway crawled out from under it, and then he shows back up and she's like, ah, but they do it this like kind of humorous way where instead of going back under the bleachers for him to like come in there after her, she crawls out towards him, and he kind of just stands there watching it, and then lets her like he's like, I'll give her like a second, and then he goes after her. It's very silly.
He's a very honorable killer.
Yeah,
he's not going to take the easy way out.
I think he was like, she's a teenager.
Yeah.
She's in this bulky beaver thing, and she's not going to get away.
Yes.
I can give her a few seconds.
It's crazy. Do you love Halloween? Have you ever wished there was another time to celebrate that fun and spooky time of year?
Well, now you can. Hauntfest is a Halloween horror festival business that celebrates Halloween off-season.
Their next ghoulish affairs will be at Nightmare Dungeon in Greenville, South Carolina on December 13th through 15th, and at Terrapin Beer Company in Athens, Georgia on April 4th through 6th.
Hauntfest events include all sorts of themed activities, such as hay rides, freak shows, fire breathing, live music, trivia, pumpkin painting, animal encounters, a haunted trail, and much more.
The festival also hosts an array of horror and Halloween-themed vendors, offering anything from tarot readings and antiques to original horror literature, macabre artwork, and jewelry.
Don't miss out on this opportunity. Get your pre-sale tickets today for only $20.
For ticket purchases, inquiries, and more info, please visit www.hauntfest.net and follow Hauntfest on social media.
I guess we can talk about our scariest.
Yeah, do you have a scariest moment?
Yeah, I think it's like right at the top of the movie, actually. It's the first kill, if I'm remembering correctly, it's the first kill in the movie. They're setting up this whole thing after they've talked about the butcher. Two of them go inside, and I think they're just looking for like alcohol and stuff.
Yeah.
But they also, this is like when they discover the knife, and we kind of get to see it the first time. And one of them goes down into the cellar. and he's looking for alcohol, and he finds like a bottle of wine that's really nice, and then he hears a noise and he gets scared, and he drops the bottle of wine. And I'm going to take a slight side tangent here. Why does everyone drop shit?
Immediately drop the thing you're holding.
And like the thing was, like, especially in this circumstance, because they're underage kids drinking, and they're doing it clearly in private, like secret from like adults and everything like that. And it's like, now you can't, there's a wine mess downstairs with broken glass. So he does that, and I'm like, well, now you're going to have to clean that up. And I don't like the noise and everything set up that, like, obviously somebody's about to get got, but they also did it in kind of a way that you kind of thought, well, maybe because like you, I wasn't sure that these were not the main characters or whatever. Right. And so I was like, well, maybe he's not going to get got.
Yeah, maybe it's just one of those.
Yeah, like fake out scare. Yeah, exactly. Fake out jump scares. So he hears the noise, and then the true psychopathic thing of this movie is he's dropped the wine bottle, and then he starts cleaning up the broken shards of glass with his bare hands, and then just placing it on top of this wooden shelf that he's just next to or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, that's truly the crazy.
Most insane behavior where he just immediately gets down and starts picking up glass.
The thing is like, I've seen so many people do this in real life. They break something that is glass on the ground, and then they immediately, I don't know if it's like out of shame, they don't want to like bother anybody else, they start trying to like pick it up. The worst ones are the ones that like they then come up to you and they just have a handful of broken glass, and they're like, what do I do with this? And I'm like, you should have left it on the ground, right? Because I can sweep it up. And then nobody has to touch it. Yeah, like we have tools for this. You don't have to pick up shards of glass with your bare hands. Anyway, he does that, which is just crazy. He's like picking it, and then he like looks up, and Vince Vaughn's character is now standing behind the thing, and he grabs him and like slams him down on the boxes or whatever, and he takes the half of the broken wine bottle and shoves it down into his mouth, and then it like shatters in his throat and it comes out.
And this is what I mean by like the gore and stuff. Like, even though it's not really to me anyway, it's not really a scary movie, but it has like fun practical effects and like interesting kills that are kind of goofy. So there's still something there to enjoy, you know.
Yeah, there was that one. I think that to me is like the scariest bit, mostly because it happens like pretty quick and like right at the top of the movie.
I think he is the first death. Yeah, because then we go to the other girl, and then the couple having sex, and the guy gets killed, and then we have the little final girl chase. So.
Yeah, the girl who gets killed, she gets her head slammed.
Yes, in the toilet seat repeatedly until it gets smooshed. Yeah, which is also scary. Yeah. I think my scariest moment is probably, it's a little later in the movie when the butcher is in Millie's body. And we've already set up prior to the body swap that this woodshop teacher, Mr. Bernardi, is like a huge asshole that just, he seems to like hate Millie for whatever reason. And, you know, it's like, we set up this thing where he like calls on her name for her project, and she's like, oh, well, I'm signed up for the 16th or whatever. And he's like, oh, making excuses and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, she signed up for the 16th. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. But he's just an overbearing asshole. But anyway, later in the movie, when the butcher is in Millie's body, goes to find him to make him, you know, his next target or whatever. But it actually kind of leads to a like sort of an extended fight scene, because what the butcher failed to really consider is that the butcher doesn't have his huge hulking frame and his seemingly superhuman strength. He's just normal teenage girl Millie. Yeah. And so he's trying to take on
a fully grown adult man
who looks like he's in, you know, relatively okay shape. And he, like, it actually turns into kind of this like fight for both of their lives, which was sort of terrifying. And also, like, as a woman and someone who was a teenage girl who was kind of intimidated by like older men in like authority positions, I couldn't help, even though I knew that it was the butcher in that body, it was also just like the way that he was talking to Millie because he thought it was still Millie was just like gave me the ick so bad of just like, it was just, you could tell he had absolutely no respect for her and was just like full of disdain and had been like wanting to do this, you know? But anyway, the whole scene after all of this back and forth culminates in Catherine Newton Butcher eventually getting the upper hand, and then the woodshop teacher gets put on the table saw and goes through and gets like cut.
Split in half.
Split in half basically, which is also very gruesome.
Yeah.
But I thought that scene was really effective, and I liked the, you know, the gore and everything. I thought it was interesting. The other scariest scene, because not to get like so dark here, but they took it there, was at the end.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
When Catherine Newton Butcher...
I remember this scene and we looked at each other and I was like, oh, these guys better fucking eat it.
Yes.
Just like, holy shit.
Literally like 3 jock guys who are all on the football team with Booker, who likes Millie.
Yeah.
Like, think they're luring Millie into this like back area of the mill.
Well, and importantly, Millie got hot now because before she was like the very bookish, you know, girl, and then when the butcher gets into her body,
for some reason it's like, this, I'm gonna be hot,
sick red leather jacket and like
ponytail,
tight fitting jeans,
and
that was, we can get back to this scene in a minute, but that was a really funny moment that like the butcher wakes up in Millie's body, is like, I have boobs now, how crazy, and then shows up at school, hair done, perfect outfit, makeup done. And I'm like, this is like a 50-year-old man.
Yes,
there's no way he's done makeup in his life. How would he have done this?
Yeah, and also, why would the butcher care about, oh, I'm going to dress her hot?
Yeah. Very funny.
But anyway, they think they're luring Millie, and they also like kind of don't like Millie because it's this simultaneous thing of like, she quote unquote got hot, but then she like insulted some of the jock guys and like, you know, basically like one of them like touched her or something and she like threatened him. Yeah. And so they felt kind of emasculated or whatever. But it is heavily implied that they are going to sexually assault Millie, but they don't realize that the butcher is in Millie's body. And so the butcher just like pops off and kills all of them in a violent, you know, explosion of blood,
he truly says one of the most disgusting lines like I've ever heard from a character, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it's one of those things, like he says it, and because the movie just does a good job with this, that like, you know, they're about to get killed and you truly do not feel bad that like, any of them are about to get killed.
Yeah, but that was also scary because I was like, god dang, like this is a little too real. But yeah, at least they got punished for it immediately and swiftly.
Very, very true.
So yeah, those were both pretty good gory scenes. Of course, in the end, it all does work out. You know, they're able to do the stab before time runs out and switch places. It seems like the butcher has died, but again pulls a Michael Myers and like comes back in the ambulance.
He kind of does a Rob Zombie.
Yes.
Halloween Michael Myers, where he's in the, I guess it's guys taken. I don't know. Are they still in an ambulance though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in an ambulance, and then it's implied that he kills them.
Yes.
All we see is the heart monitor's not on him anymore. But anyway.
And he, you know, goes to finish Millie off, but then Millie and her mom and sister, you know,
through the power of family,
love,
and then there's a weird scene that lingers at the very end where she's gotten the upper hand and she kills the butcher, and she kind of has this little smirk on her. It's just like, oh, a little part of him still in her.
Yeah, maybe she is a little bad.
We'll get freaky too. Electric Boogaloo.
2 freaky, 5 me. So that's the movie. We should go over our rating here.
Yeah. Like we said, it's an entertaining movie. To me, it's not scary. If gore is something that you're not into, then it's probably a little bit scarier for you. But I thought it was pretty successful. The lowest thing that I rated it was in scares for a 4, and the highest thing I rated it was entertainment at a 7.5.
And mine was pretty similar. We actually had very similar scores. It looks like you gave it a 6.35, and I gave it just a 6.3, which made our combined average about a 6.3.
Yeah.
And some change, I guess. But
I think it would be like 6.325 or something, but I don't let it go that granular.
Yeah, we don't care about that. But yeah, so, it's a slightly above average movie, basically. I was reflecting back on an early episode of Love at First Fright when we reviewed Krampus.
Yeah.
And a lot of people gave me shit for reviewing or rating Krampus kind of low. This was before we had our current scale that we use, and we just did it out of 5 overall. But I went and converted what my score would be, and our combined average for Krampus would be a 5.96. So we did rate Krampus lower than Freaky. Come at us.
Yeah. I do want to go on record because you converted our averages, but you also converted our individual scores.
Yes.
For Krampus, I rated it, I think 0.2 lower.
Yes.
Than what like Rotten Tomatoes says. So I'm like right in line with it. So don't come at me for that. And then for this, I only rated it 1 higher. 0.1 higher than what I rated Krampus. So they're basically the same thing for me. If anybody's gonna be mad, you can be mad at Anna.
What the hell?
I gotta save myself.
I gotta put me first.
Yeah,
mine was 5.52 was my converted rating, and yours was a 6.4 for Krampus. So yes, I did prefer Freaky to Krampus.
Yeah.
I do think, in all honesty and fairness, that part of it was that I truly came into Freaky with 0 expectations because I hadn't even heard of the movie before, versus Krampus. It had been talked up a lot to me, so I think I had kind of an expectations versus reality issue.
That's fair. We won't rehash or relitigate it all, but I think part of the reason that we rated it a little bit lower was, like you said, it had been kind of talked up to us a lot, but I also think that we went into it with more of an understanding that it leaned more heavily horror than it did comedy, and it very strongly is more of a comedy, like comedy first horror movie.
Yes.
But then it also did this weird thing where like they also wanted these touching Christmas moments, and I think for us specifically, it was really hard to navigate that like
we were expecting
that triangle of horror movie, Christmas movie, and comedy movie, which like I think any 2 of those works well together or can work well together, but you introduce that third element and it starts to seem a little wonky in there. Anyway,
I
think either one you would have a good time with, honestly.
Yeah, I think turn on either one and you'd have a good time because it's ultimately 2 horror comedies. But yeah, I just thought that was funny because that was probably, of every episode we've put out in this first year of Love at First Fright, that was by far our most controversial ranking.
For sure.
No one's really said much to me about any of the other ones. That one I got like a lot of texts about.
How could you? You were the chosen one.
So sorry. Do you have any other thoughts about Freaky before we start wrapping up?
We happened to watch this on, I was doing a trial of YouTube TV.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that like getting it on YouTube TV, we had ads during the movie, which like insane. Whatever, it's stupid. It's a premium. I'm not going to go off on this whole diatribe. There's a lot of fucked up stuff with streaming services I don't like. The other thing is I guess because even though we're streaming it, which you would think should mean it's not necessarily unrated, but certainly the theatrical release just with ads, it definitely was edited.
It was edited.
For like a made-for-TV version. There's a scene in the bathroom stall where there's like graffiti on there and they've blurred out part of the graffiti, and then there's, I think, definitely 2 lines in the movie where you can see the mouth of the character says one thing, right, but the what is it, ad lib, that comes over for the dialogue, ADR, that's it, that comes over says a different word, and so if you have the chance to watch this on, I think, really any other service, watch it. I think watch it on that. But if you can only watch it on YouTube TV, if you have it, it's still good. There's just there's a few little moments like that. It's really strange to me too, because they also like definitely still cussed and said other things. Well, in the movie. I pointed this out to you. Like it's such a weird like thing for them to have edited the graffiti, right? Yeah. Because then like, not too long after that is when we get the scene of the whole fight scene with the woodshop teacher. Yeah. And it's not like they're shy about showing his head getting split in half, or the wine bottle shattering inside the one teen's throat or whatever. But some kind of like sexual graffiti is... That's too far. Yeah. It's just like a weird... I don't know. American purity culture is out of control. It's fucking wild. Anyway... Again, we're going to post some Savannah pictures from some of our fun horror stuff that we got to experience. If you would like to follow us or catch up with us, we are at First Fright Pod on Instagram and X. We also have a Facebook page, which is Love at First Fright. And of course, you can email us. It's firstfrightpod@gmail.com. Feel free to send us your recommendations, your feedback. Do you think Freaky is better than Krampus? Who do you think would win in a fight, Krampus or Vince Vaughn? That's a tough one. Not even the Blissfield Butcher, just Vince Vaughn. Yeah. It's a tough one. Tell me who you think would win. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully we have another fun year of horror movie stuff to share with you. Yeah, we're now switching gears, I think, again, from the spooky season stuff into now I think we're gonna start looking into like holiday. Yeah, if you have any stuff. Good holiday horror movie suggestions, hit us up. I think we have some stuff on the watch list already. For sure. That we're looking at doing, but I'm always a fan of like if somebody reaches out to us and they're like, I really like this one, or you guys should watch this, of kind of slotting that in. So yeah, definitely let us know. And in case you don't hear from us before then, if you're in the US, happy Thanksgiving. Hope you enjoy safe Thanksgiving and Black Friday festivities. Yeah, I think that's it for us though. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, scare well, and see you next time. Bye-bye. Dressed in white, I got engaged and I've got a ring.